The diversity of Italy is endless, from the chaos of the squares to the tranquility of the countryside. Classic architecture gives way to vineyard landscapes and historic cities. Traveling Italy, you witness firsthand the rich culture, the regional dialects, and the noble simplicity of Italian cuisine. Less understood are the wines that complete the Italian table, and I think that's unfortunate. For me, the wines are an expression of Italy itself, incredibly varied, distinctive in style, and true to their roots and tradition. Salud. Hi, I'm Michael Fagan. If you're overwhelmed or confused about the magnitude of Italian wines, you're not alone. Add in complex regulations, label terms, and hard to pronounce words like catarato, it can be pretty intimidating. Our series of 3 episodes will focus on Italy's main regions, the South, Central, and North. We'll highlight key grape varieties like Aglianico, Sangiovese, and Nebbiolo, and we'll give you the tools you need to understand and enjoy Italian wines. When the early Greeks started to colonize Italy, they called it Enotria, the land of wine. That was over 2,000 years ago. Today, this description is as valid as ever. These days, wine is produced in every part of this beautiful country. Italy stands as one of the largest wine producers of the world and home to more grape varieties than any other wine region. This includes scores of native grape varietals, giving them an incredible range of wines and wine styles. Vintages that are as distinct in character as the regions in which they are grown. It's vines everywhere.
Everywhere.
Over the centuries, the best sites and most suitable varietals were cultivated. Wine, like no other agricultural product, is deeply linked to a sense of place, and Italy's wine laws reflect this geographic foundation. For a structure like this to last thousands of years, it needs a good foundation. And when we think of the wines of Italy and their classification system, it's built on a similar structure. At the base level, we have Vino di Tavola. These wines can be produced from grapes grown anywhere in the country. As we move up, we have IGT, Indicazione Geografica Tipica. This is the newest classification and most exciting. It allows producers to introduce international varieties, and you also find some of the finest wines in this classification. As we move up, we have DOC and DOCG, Dominazione d'origine controllata e garantita. That's a mouthful. But what it really means is it's tightly regulated areas, it controls the regions, the types of grapes that are produced, the yield of the grapes, and even the styles that the producers can make. The first leg of our journey starts here in Palermo, Sicily, then to the wineries in the interior of the island. This island has more land under vine than any of Italy's 20 wine regions, along with numerous indigenous grapes that can trace their roots back to ancient times. The most notable are Volcanic, Catarato, Inzolia, and my personal favorite, Nero d'Avola, the Syrah of Italy. Palermo wears its history proudly. Its cathedral is a feast of architectural styles, Gothic, Norman, and Renaissance details, an astonishing building that has stood for over 10 centuries over the ebb and flow of great civilizations that have left their mark here. You know, we're actually closer to Africa here than we are to Rome. And while the climate is certainly warm, growers are taking advantage of the higher elevations on these mountains to grow grapes and to produce wines that have elegance, finesse, and a wonderful backbone of acidity. Sicily has a Mediterranean climate. You might assume that given the heat and sunshine here, that the grapes may be parched and overripe. But with elevations approaching 900 meters above sea level, the grapes ripen slowly with a unique Sicilian intensity and richness, yielding wines of depth and elegance. These are the vineyards of Tasca del Merita, 400 hectares of vineyards that follow the contours of these hills to the horizon. Tasca del Merita is known for the quality of their wines, but also has a tradition of experimentation and innovation that are a family hallmark. Alberto Tasca del Merita is typical of a new breed of Sicilian wine growers. So Alberto, where are we?
We are right in the heart of Sicily.
In the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere. Really in Sicily, but really far from the sea. And we grow here Nero d'Avola, the most famous, important red varieties that we have in Sicily.
That's an indigenous variety to Sicily.
Yes, it is.
Nero d'Avola is Sicily's best-selling local varietal, a powerful red coming from the Regaliali soils. You can expect a wine of elegance and structure. So what is the character of Sicilian wines?
So what people think is we change a little bit our style. So the southern part of the world were really famous for really powerful wines, and that was true because we achieved maturity in a really easy way. So all the wines were really powerful. Even the north, who grow vineyards, need to look for power, for structure. And what we have here, we have to look for elegance and for something for acidity, and they should not become too heavy or too sweety or too so.
And that's a key thing too. With many consumers, they're afraid of that word acidity, but that's what gives the wine so much balance.
Yes, so acidity that's true. Acidity, and people think that acidity is something that doesn't taste really well. Of course, even acidity must be balanced with structure, with sugar, with alcohol, and so great wine is when it really has a really great harmony between all these things, and balance between all these parameters is really, really, really important.
One of the advantages of growing grapes on those high altitudes in Sicily is you can make some delicious white wines, and this is a great example. It's called Leone. Leone is a blend, and it's a blend of indigenous grape varieties like Catarratto, and it's primarily Catarratto with a little bit of Chardonnay and some aromatic varietals. It's really quite delicious. As we look at the color, we can see it's really clear with a little bit of straw gold on the edge. When you smell it, you get citrus fruit and a little bit of white peach. On the palate, it's dry, but it's really well rounded with a lovely backbone of acidity. This would be great with a pasta dish with a tomato vegetable sauce. We're now moving to Sicily's western coast, close to the town of Marsala. For me, the story of wine always begins on the land. This rolling landscape is parched, but the vines are green and healthy. Native varietals like Catarratto and Sonica and Volcanic thrive in this climate. But what about newcomers? Can world travelers Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc handle the heat without losing their structure? Donnafugata is known for the freshness of their white wines, and we've come here to learn more. In cellars carved out of volcanic rock, I'm looking forward to cooling off and meeting José Uralo, whose vitality and energy seem to be a perfect reflection of the wines her family produces.
Today, Sicily is able to produce very fruity wines that are related to the land, such as Nero d'Avola, Catarratto, Ansonica, Zibibo, which is a type of muscat grape. We are very proud of our native variety, but I can say that our terroir, the soil, the climate condition, the vinification know-how can bring to fantastic Chardonnay or fantastic Cabernet Sauvignon, which are very Sicilian in the taste. And then fresh wines, nice to drink, aromatic, long, that you can match with good food.
Donnafugata keeps yields low. Perfect ripeness is ensured, but amazingly, the grapes keep their acidity and freshness. For me, these wines are youthful and fresh, and like many of the wines from the south, known for their drinkability and sensory appeal. I want to show you three. One is a blend, one is a Chardonnay, and a beautiful red from Nero d'Avola. Our blend is based on Catarratto, and the actual blend will change year to year depending on the vintage. When you smell this one, it's got beautiful, beautiful minerality and hint of nuttiness to it. If you like the dry Riesling or unoaked Chardonnay, this is the type of wine that would appeal to you. Our Chardonnay, it's got beautiful golden color. This one here is aged in stainless steel tanks. Lots of ripe apple and melon on the nose. It's quite lush on the palate, nice clean finish. And what's really interesting is to see the international varieties adapting so well to Sicily. They just love that warmth and sunshine and dryness. Nero d'Avola is a very important grape for Sicily. Ripe berry and spice on the nose. You know, Nero d'Avola is often referred to as the Syrah of Sicily, and I can see why. Well structured, it's got remarkable personality. Now, these are all three great wines that really demonstrate the diversity and complexity of the wines of Sicily. Sicily's behind us now, and we're traveling up the mainland along the western coastline towards Naples, and eventually onto the region of Campania. This is the spectacular Amalfi Coast, on our way to the scenic village of Positano. From its medieval origins to the 21st century, Positano has inspired art and literature. It's a place of dreams. Tourists arrive here from all over the world, drawn by its history, the spectacular views, but also the fresh seafood that is so important to the Campanian people and their cuisine. And I can't think of a better place to put the theory of local food and local wine to the test. The catch of the day has just been delivered. What local wines do you suggest we serve with this?
Okay, I suggest Grillo or Greco from Campania.
Excellent suggestion. I'd like to show you two white wines from southern Italy, Grillo and Greco. Grillo actually means cricket. When we look at the color of Grillo, we see it's very, very light, almost water clear with a slight green edge. On the nose, you get wonderful citrus and clean fruit flavors. On the palate, it's quite light-bodied. It's got a nice, refreshing acidity that makes it an easy drink on a sunny afternoon. Greco we'll see is a little deeper in color, and you can see that in the center of the bowl. On the nose, I get citrus and pear fruit, almost a little aniseed. It's a little richer on the palate, and that mineral character really shows through. These are both great examples of the wines of southern Italy. You could spend a week here exploring the villages and restaurants along the coast, but it's on to the region of Campania, and in particular, the DOCG zone of Taurasi. Campania is home to 36 red and white grape varieties, but today their reds are earning international respect. There's a peace and tranquility in these vineyards, a welcome contrast to the crowds of nearby Positano. But the hills in Campania have not always been quiet and peaceful. In 79 AD, powerful forces were unleashed in an eruption of unimaginable power, resulting in widespread destruction. But for the generations that followed, there was a remarkable gift. We're at the top of Mount Vesuvius, and this is the crater it left when it erupted in 79 AD. At that time, it completely buried the city of Pompeii. And here we have Naples. And as far as you can see, this entire region was covered in volcanic ash. And this mineral-rich soil is what gives the wines of Campania their unique character. In the best soils of the Campanian vineyards, they grow Aglianico grapes. The volcanic remnants, combined with chalky clay soil, give these grapes their rich and smoky character. It's only the Aglianico grapes that grow in the Taurasi region of Campania that can have the DOCG status. It was the esteemed Mastroberardino family that first brought Taurasi to the world's attention in 1968, and I'm happy we can pay them a visit. These scenes are a glimpse into the mind of the artist. But this isn't a gallery or museum. These domed ceilings grace the wine cellars of Mastroberardino. And it's fitting for such a renowned winemaking family who have been producing great wine since the 1700s. 10 generations later, Piero Mastroberardino is putting his mark on tradition.
Here there's a very good concentration of potassium and other components that are really interesting for this character both in the whites and in the reds. And we put these elements, the minerality, together with the characteristics of the altitude and the microclimate. And so putting together these things, we get the acidity also that is quite high compared to other parts of the country. And it gives longevity, ageability to the wines that is quite unusual. Of course for the reds, but at the same time it's also interesting for the whites because we've got Fiano di Avellino that can be tasted in vertical tastings even for 25 vintages, and it's quite unusual.
In my opinion, this is one of Italy's greatest wines, and it's a shame more people haven't tried it. Some are still developing in complexity after 80 years.
So Michael, I want to show you something very special. The Taurasi lineup of the family.
It's quite the collection.
Yes, in fact, going back to 1928, actually, as you can see.
Is that still drinkable?
Yes, it is. It is actually. Last year, we opened up a bottle of 1928 in New York in a great tasting, and it showed beautifully, 95 points.
Wow. Now Taurasi is made from Aglianico, and that's a grape that really needs time to develop.
To show its major characteristics, and it has to be produced in a certain environment.
Okay. Now the Taurasi that's produced today, you can drink it right away. You don't have to wait hundreds of years to drink it.
Absolutely not, absolutely not. You can still drink it after 3-4 years maximum, and you're gonna get a fantastic, beautiful wine.
Aglianico is one of the misunderstood grape varieties from southern Italy, and it can produce wines that stand shoulder to shoulder with some of Italy's best. When you look at this one, you can see the color is beautiful. Dark cherry, ruby red. On the nose, there's a lot happening here. You get dark fruit, you get smoky aromas. On the palate, it's full, it's rich, has soft tannins, and a beautiful, beautiful acidity. This is a wine that's made for aging, and if you're patient, it will certainly reward you. We're leaving Campania and traveling east over the Apennine Mountains and across the Italian peninsula to Puglia. There are 3 main indigenous varietals here: Negro Amaro in the Salento region to the south, Primitivo around the city of Taranto, and my favorite, Nero di Troia in the northern region, which is our next stop. This 13th century castle overlooks the Castel del Monte region of Puglia, a flat and fertile plain that is well suited for agriculture and viticulture. Here in the town of Minervino Murge, you'll find all the elements of a Mediterranean diet, typical of the Puglian region. Locally grown fresh fruit and vegetables, and an abundance of seafood. And of course, olive oil. Regional Italian cuisine is sometimes referred to as la cucina povera, but seeing this as poor man's cuisine misses an important point. The cooking is simple but not impoverished. It's based on the agricultural wealth of the fertile Puglian plains.
Questi sono tutti vini pugliesi, Barbara.
And of course, local wines are a perfect match for the Puglian lifestyle. Winemaking in this region has evolved tremendously over the last decade, with significant investments in equipment and processes that maximize fruit quality and expression of local character. Traditionally, Puglia was known for producing quantity rather than quality. And this is a great example of the old canopy trellising method. Using this system, vines can produce up to 20 kilograms of grapes per vine. And that's not what you want to produce quality wines. The wine scene is evolving, and that transformation is beginning in the vineyard, where vines are being trained in this fashion to produce quality fruit and yielding only about 2 kilograms per vine. The murgia.
The murgia. Murgia comes from the ancient word stone. In fact, you see how
There's
many
lots of stone.
It's only stones.
This is Sebastiano Di Corato from Riviera, a pioneer in quality winemaking in Puglia. Riviera recognized early the enormous potential of the Castel del Monte region, and Riviera played a pivotal role in having the DOC incorporate varietals such as Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc.
So, Michael, finally we are at the Nero di Troia vineyard.
But their signature grape, the one they are well known for, is the indigenous varietal Nero di Troia. Is there a meaning behind the word Nero di Troia?
Nero di Troia means black grape from Troy, or from Troia. Troia is the name of a small town in northern Apulia, but it's also the name of the famous ancient Greek city.
Now, for somebody who's never tried wines from the area, what should they expect? What would be some general characteristics?
Nero di Troia is a relatively special varietal because as a red varietal, because not only you have concentrated fruit or black fruit as most red wines, but you also get floral notes. And what people usually recognize in Nero di Troia, pure Nero di Troia, is the violet flower notes.
Now, Nero di Troia is a very thick-skinned grape. What is the advantage of that?
The thick skin has been developed by the grape to protect itself from moisture, from rain. The grape doesn't ever rotten, and that's very important, of course, especially if you want to have very ripe tannins, because we have a lot of tannins, we need to have them very ripe. So we need to keep the grapes on the vine as long as possible.
Otherwise, I guess it's more of an astringent tannin.
Exactly. Otherwise we will have green tannins. We want to have well-ripe tannins.
Now I'd like to introduce you to two red wines from the area. The first one is called Primitivo. You're probably more familiar with this and call it Zinfandel. It's the same grape variety. And when you look at the color, you can see it's really deep, intense purple because it's so young. On the nose, lots of spice, blackberry fruit. It's really rich in the mouth, soft tannins, you get the warmth from the alcohol, and a beautiful silky finish. The second wine is Nero di Troia. Now this one here is really special. Very deep in color, beautiful, beautiful rich ruby. Nero di Troia, as we saw in the vineyard, is a very thick-skinned grape, and that contributes to the extract that we're getting in the color, and it also contributes to the tannins that we'll experience in a minute. On the nose, it's quite complex. You get hints of violet and fennel and leather and spice and really dark concentrated red fruit. This is really, really mouth-filling, and you can taste those tannins, but they're soft and silky. And you know, over time, these are going to soften. And if you wanted to drink it now, if you find this too intense, try it with some of the local lamb dishes. The South has given us a wonderful introduction to Italy, the land of wine, and history, well, it's everywhere. As you explore the wines, you'll discover that there is a distinctive sense of style, and as we've experienced, the leading producers have set a new philosophy for the South. Join me in the next episode in our series as we explore central Italy. This is the land of the noble Sangiovese grape, dominant throughout the region. We'll visit the storied Antinori family of Florence, renowned for their super Tuscan wines, the famous aging cellars of Brunello, through to the golden hills of Umbria. We'll also cross over the Apennine Mountains to discover the lesser-known region of Le Marche.